This video is a continuation from the previous. Okay, so what you're looking at here is Arabian Mountain in Lithonia, which is just literally down the street from my house. And there is this plant called Diamorpha. So I'll make sure I got that right. And it turns red in different times of the well, one time of the year, but different dates. Sometimes it's February, sometimes it's March, and it turns bright red like this. And it gathers in these craters in the mountain, and which is made out of granite. It gathers there, it builds there in the sand, and it turns this bright, beautiful red. Now, we went up there at sunset, right before sunset. This is about an hour and change before sunset, and you see these gorgeous clouds, because I thought, hey, it might be a nice sunset, let's go out there. There was no sunset, or there was no color in the clouds, they just turned gray. But I got some cool shots beforehand. Okay, this is a very interesting subject matter. I got close to the ground, I got my foreground, I got my midground, I got my background, but it's okay? It does most everything right, but it just isn't a great photo. So what did I do? This made it better. Same stuff, I just blurred out the background and I made my focus on the plant. And so you can see now I have a very clear defined subject. Beforehand, I don't know what my subject is. I mean, I guess it's the plant, but here it's very clearly the plant. And this changes it. Now, it needs some processing. It's a little dark. Probably need to bump up the contrast in here. Not the contrast, but the brightness in here. But it just makes it a better photo when you have that very clearly defined subject. This is a photo I took at a vineyard, and you can see the grapes and the barn create that nice contrast between the green and the blue and the red. And but the grapes are supposed to be my focal point. They're green right now. So what I could have done, and this was in Dahlonega, up in Dahlonega, there are a bunch of vineyards up there. I had no idea until I went up there. You could wait till the grapes turn red, and then that becomes the focal point. In this case, it's not. My barn's the focal point. This is still a great photo, but I think the grapes get lost in this image because they're green, the same as the leaves around them. And you could also painstakingly go in and change all of these in Photoshop, but I don't know that I have the patience for that myself. Here's another, oh, wait a minute, okay, so here is a beautiful background, right? I have this beautiful background, the sun's coming up, it just came over the mountains, and there's morning mist that's being reflected, creating these gorgeous colors. There are clouds, they're on fire, no subject. So I found a subject, and the flowers, actually these aren't flowers. This is, you know in the grass, you don't cut the grass and it produces all those seed pods? That's what these are. And it was just grass that was getting ready to reseed itself. And I still have all this beautiful background, but now I have a subject. And it makes the composition more interesting, and that could be a photo that they could use in the national park, in one of their brochures, their literature. Okay, so I didn't know what this was at first. I just saw it, and it was fascinating to me, so I went out and I photographed it. The sun had just come up, maybe 30 minutes before, and I was driving, and I passed this, and so I got out and I photographed it because it was interesting to me that it's tobacco, and this is how they harvest it. And this was immediately after they harvest it, so it's still green. And you can see it's got not only a subject matter, it's got this beautiful foreground, midground, and then the background are the buildings that they use to process it in. And so it created this really interesting photo. And I don't know, let's see if I can zoom in here. you can see some insect had a snack, or it's a tear in the leaf. And I just thought that little hole kind of made it more interesting. But yeah, it's starting to dry out a little bit. It'll eventually turn that tobacco brown. One quick tip. Again, this could be argued whether this is architecture or landscape. I say landscape because it's really meant to show. I love derelict abandoned buildings, and this image is meant to show how nature eventually takes over. And I was driving down the side of the road, and it was noon, so I wasn't thinking about shooting anything. And there were some clouds building on the horizon, and I passed this abandoned building that did not have any do not trespass signs. And so I got out and trespassed. I mean, you've got to be really careful about that. It was a public building, so technically I was not trespassing. But just be careful. You don't want to get arrested. You can get arrested, and if it says don't trespass, then don't trespass. This case, it was a public building. It was a school. It was on public property. There were no fences. It was wide open. And so I went out and I took this shot. And I created this contrast between the where the sun was hitting the grass and where the building was shadowing it, and create this really great contrast. And you can see this is beginning to decay. In a few more years, this, if no one does anything, this is just going to be taken over by nature. And that was the message here, which is why I say this is landscape. Oh, and also I took this in the shadow. I stood in the shadow myself, because at solar noon, or that hot part of the day, it's really hard to get good photographs because the contrast is so strong. But you can, if you shelter yourself out of the sun. It's really hard sometimes because there are always exceptions to everything I'm telling you. So just take the shot. You delete it if it's not any good. Here is a waterfall in the background, some rocks in the midground, and then my foreground is just these beautiful pebbles. Now, it's a forgettable photo. It's beautiful. You've seen this a million times. What would make this more interesting as a subject? It just doesn't have one. And there's different ways you could do this. I mean, you could go in and Photoshop and change the color of one of these rocks. You could bring something with you that you take back out that doesn't pollute. You could move a leaf. Some people will do that. Bring in a leaf. You could relocate yourself to find a subject. But this is great, and it follows all the rules. It's just, eh. Now, here's a different view of that same creek. And I almost have it. I thought there was a leaf floating, and I thought I photographed it. You can see some other leaves that are in here. There was a leaf I set out and thought I was capturing it. So same thing here. It just doesn't really have a subject. It's great. Great composition. Got this cool foreground, this fabulous midground, and an interesting background, but no subject. And then another shot. Waterfall in my background. Leaves for my foreground, and then I just once again happen to manage to capture that beautiful burst of sunlight peeking through that created those rays. And to be honest with you guys, I've just lucked upon this because I've probably shot tens of thousands of images. So you just gotta take a lot of shots, and eventually it happens. I don't know how to make this happen other than with having somebody hold a prism through the sunlight. That would definitely make it happen. Okay, and then don't be afraid to shoot dark. These have this photo is very evocative, creates a mood. It's light right here. Most of it's dark. I've got the foreground. I've got my seagrass. You can see the ocean. This is literally moments before the whole sky went black, and so it just creates a really beautiful photo of the ocean. This one's taken just a little before the other one, and you just create these high contrast but yet dark, moody shots. And I've had photographers that I know tell me that this work sells better than the happy work. Okay, so ocean, I've got my cool foreground, my interesting background, and my kayak as a subject. It's a river kayak. I wasn't supposed to take it into the ocean, but it was Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. Waves weren't that high. I didn't kill myself, so fortunately, I was able to get on this little bar and take some really cool photos from there. And then sunsets. They're great, they're fabulous, but this has no subject. So you want to make sure you have a subject in your photos. Here alone, this having the moon and one of the planets in it changed everything. It's my subject, right? I have my foreground, my midground, beautiful sunset, and now I have the moon and a planet. Here's another, the holes where the clams are became my subject matter in this beautiful beach scene. More of a background, I mean, or something people might hang on the wall. It's not the best, but it was just beautiful. And then here, again, I got this gorgeous sunrise, and I got a subject here. And then, so this is arguable that this is not landscape, but this was an installation of lights where the artist put these in the ground to simulate flowers and fireflies and nature. And it was this beautiful park that was free and you could just walk through it. And so, you know, don't be limited by what definitions are. Forge your own path.